Okay, we are back. We are back. Not sure why we have these issues from time to time, but waiting on the Blue app to get caught up. And we are going to jump right into tonight's Anchored by Grace session with our guest, Amy Fairchild. And I'm super excited to have her as a guest. And we are, let's see, I have a couple people texting me. Yes. Um, and we are going to, why is this not working? Why? Ha, ha, ha. Let's do, I guess, let's see. Here we go. Looks like somebody is now joining us uh, on Facebook, I believe. Yes, there we go. It is now on, and I want to be able to copy this link and post it to Empowering Kingdom Growth. So, for those of you who are just joining us, welcome. And please go ahead and share, tag, and like this because we have some great information tonight that we will learn. It's new for me, and so maybe it's not new for you. So please do share, like, and tag. And without further ado, I want to bring on Miss Amy Fairchild, our licensed professional counselor, who will be sharing about tolerable grief versus toxic grief. So, welcome, Amy. Welcome to Anchored by Grace. We're so excited to have you on tonight.
Thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be here. Anything that you are a part of, Miss Pam, I'm happy to be a part of.
Thank you. Yes. So this, I started this in January. God said to do something virtually, so I always try to be as obedient as I can. And so here we are. We're in the 8th month of doing this, and so I'm excited to hear about. This topic, tolerable versus toxic stress. But before we get there, I'd like for you to just tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and all of those things.
Absolutely. So, my name's Amy Fairchild, and I am a licensed clinical social worker in Hammond, Louisiana. I work in the Tangipahoa Parish School System. My official title is SEL Coach, which is Social Emotional Learning. So I have the privilege of focusing on the well-being of all of our staff in the district, as well as all of our students. We do that through making sure that every setting has a positive culture and climate, that everyone is interacting in a respectful way. So I am truly blessed to love my job. But I have been a social worker for over 20 years now. And I've worked in child protection. I've worked in the hospital setting. I've worked clearly in the school system. And the past 4 years, I have not only been working with you on different projects, but also working with a former coworker of mine, working with children and their grief. And so we've done a number of different projects. So as it might not be surprising, grief has been an underlying current in all of the work that I have done, whether it was, loss through child protection, loss through medical rehabilitation, where folks were losing the things that they used to be able to do, functional things, mental capacities, all kinds of different things, depending upon what brought them to us. And then now in the school setting, it's universal. And so it's a topic that I hate to say I enjoy talking about it, but because it's so universal, it brings us all together. And so I think that it's just a powerful way of sharing resources with one another.
Yes, and so it's kind of funny that you say like you hate to say that you love talking about it, and that's kind of the way that I am when it comes to helping people to walk through to navigate what grief looks like for them. I've become very passionate about it, and it's not something that most popular, but it's a part of life.
Yeah.
And I think it's necessary to have the conversations, to do what we're doing tonight, because that's what's going to help someone get through. They may not listen tonight, but they may hear it later, and it may be very well be what they actually need to get them through this next phase of their lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I kind of want to jump right in and start our conversation and talk about this topic: tolerable versus toxic stress. I never heard it quite put that way before, and so I'd love for you to just share what the difference between the two are, and that may help us to better understand how the conversation will go tonight.
Absolutely. I'm happy to. So, the number one thing that most people will say if they're not feeling 100% is, I'm stressed. And so that's just the common word that everyone understands, but really doesn't really dig deep into. It's just like, oh, stress. Yeah, we're all stressed. Everybody's stressed. But
Mm-hmm.
there are different, and our bodies are designed to handle stress.
Mm-hmm.
So we are equipped to be able to respond to the things happening in our lives. So there's actually even positive stress.
Mm-hmm.
So when you experience a change, before you come on to a live stream, right? You get the butterfly. That's positive stress that helps you to do better, that helps you to perform. Before a big championship game or a big test, that's positive stress. Before having a baby or getting married. So all of those things are stressful, but it's positive.
Mm-hmm.
Tolerable stress is when we endure a loss, when we suffer something that causes strain in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's tolerable because, or it's tolerable when we have a support in place that helps
Mm-hmm.
us
Mm-hmm.
to navigate that and to continue to be able to function and to continue to be able to proceed in our lives the way that we have.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes toxic when we miss that support piece. And for some people, that support piece is an individual. For some people, it's a professional counselor. For some people, it's their faith.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it is that helped them to bear the brunt of that stressful incident,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's a car accident, but you were able to have access to the medical care that you needed, it makes it tolerable because you're able to recover.
Okay.
Toxic is when you are unable to get out of that place from where it initially happens.
Mm.
Mentally, physically, emotionally, you're stuck. And
Mm-hmm.
so clinically, the time frame is typically, if it's from 6 to 12 months,
Mm-hmm.
you're still stuck
Mm-hmm.
and you haven't had the opportunity to move forward and you haven't had anybody there to support you to help navigate the path, it can become toxic,
Okay.
meaning medically detrimental, physically, mentally, for kids, behaviorally. So an example for kids, because I always have to use an example for children. If a child loses a parent, that is a pivotal moment in their lives. That is a stressful moment in their lives. But if they're
Mm-hmm.
surrounded by people who love them and help
Mm-hmm.
them to remember that individual that they lost, to help them to put the pieces together as they move forward and to support and love them, then it becomes tolerable. It doesn't alleviate the hurt,
Mm-hmm.
but it helps you to navigate. Whereas toxic is where you lose a parent and then you may lose other things subsequently to that. You may lose where you're living, you may lose your school, you may lose your community, right? Depending
Mm-hmm.
upon what happens. And that becomes toxic. And speaking with you, when you were asking me to come on and I was thinking about grief, what I found is I've been talking to people a lot in the past few months about this toxic versus tolerable,
Mm-hmm.
and where is that line? And when you really start digging under, a lot of times that stressful incident is
Mm-hmm.
linked to grief. It's
Uh,
linked to a loss,
mm-hmm.
whether it's the loss of a relationship,
Mm-hmm.
the loss of a life, the loss of a job, whatever it might be. That
Mm-hmm.
stress that they're feeling is linked to a loss. And so that led me to do more reading into tolerable grief versus
Mm-hmm.
toxic grief.
And so many things that you've said, it just reminded me of my journey when I experienced the grief, the loss of my son, where I had a community. I had a strong, strong support system. So I guess that's where it made it tolerable for me to be able to go through it and to navigate it, and to be able to maneuver through this painful situation that I experienced.
Absolutely.
Another thing that I noticed that when you were talking, were explaining the difference between the two, I think it's important for people who are listening, and whether you're hearing this tonight or you hear it later, it's important to understand that grief is not just the loss of a person. It's the loss of I say, a person, place, or thing. So it could be anything that is meaningful to you that you no longer have. Whether it's the home you had to relocate, it's a job, it's a pet, whatever the case may be. So I quickly learned that grief is not just losing a person. So I hear you saying tonight that that same stands true to whether they've lost a job or had to relocate or whatever the situation may be.
Absolutely. I was talking to a coworker who recently lost her sister, and she said, her sister had been ill for a long period of time, but she's like, people look at me and they're like, you knew this was coming. And she's like, you
Mm-hmm.
never know this is coming. You're never ready for this. And she said that, even her husband didn't understand why she wanted to keep the shades drawn and she wanted to stay on the couch and she didn't want to go out and socialize. And,
Mm-hmm.
but I looked at her and I was like, but you got up, you got dressed, and you came to
Mm-hmm.
work when it was time to come to work. And I was like, that's something. And
Yeah.
so, that part is where, if it's keeping you from working, that's when there's professional intervention that is
Mm-hmm.
needed, because
Mm-hmm.
we can't stop living no matter what it is that we're going through. We can pause and we can
Mm-hmm.
grieve and we can hurt and we can feel, but then we have to find a way to pick that up and to move forward.
Yeah, I know. I would often tell people when I would meet with them or whether I was speaking is you can't let grief keep you where it found you.
Oh,
And people can often get stuck and they stay in that place. And the hardest thing that I find is staying there and not doing something. And I can remember telling my daughter, listen, if I can just get out of the bed and move to the sofa, I need you to give me some grace. Like, let's count that as a win because you have no idea how hard it is for me to just get up out of the bed. And
oh yeah.
so I think that's important for those who are listening tonight. And so those who are, I ask that you would tag someone, share this live, like it so that other people could see it. If not tonight, they will have an opportunity to see it at a later date. And so, one of the next things that I'd like to talk about is in the grieving process, what types of stress might be considered tolerable, and how can it help us to grow and to heal from that particular tolerable stress?
Absolutely. So, like I said, in talking to people, when they name it stress, a lot of times there's an underlying loss. So there is some grief there, even if they haven't been able to label that yet.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes stress is a safer place to be because
Mm-hmm.
grief comes with it some work. We talk about grief work. You don't hear a lot
Mm-hmm.
about stress work, but you hear about grief work. And so I think that people hear that and it's just like it's easier to sit here. But what's so important is that tolerable piece, like you said, any progress, moving from the bed to the couch, right? Just getting up and physically moving,
Mm-hmm.
there is a molecular component to that. So your body is physically having to engage. What ongoing grief and stress will do is that it releases those negative cortisol hormones, the stress hormones in our body that begin to impact our physical health. So for tolerable stress, for tolerable grief, it can be making sure, if you live alone, making sure that you have communication with at least one person a day.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's, I don't want to talk to anybody that knows me, that knows how I'm doing, but I'm going to greet the mailman in person. I'm just going to at
Mm-hmm.
least engage with another human being, because connection is the key to healing. And
Mm-hmm.
so we need each other. We need our community, and we need one another. The other thing is movement. Even if it's just stretching, even if it's, you're not ready to get out the bed yet, but you're just stretching, there's a
Mm-hmm.
meditative component to that. And
Okay.
so it's, yoga is fantastic because it does help to release those positive chemicals that help us to heal
Mm-hmm.
physically
Mm-hmm.
and emotionally. And
Mm-hmm.
so I tell people, even if you can just do some stretching, that's a start. And that's so connection, movement, hydration is something that seems so simple, but when we're at a deficit and we're dehydrated, it affects
Mm-hmm.
our cognition. And then we're not even thinking clearly. So then it
Mm.
really can lead to the spiral effect, to a dark place that, we don't want to have to go to. So
Yeah.
staying hydrated, moving, engaging with other people. And I know that sounds very basic, but when you're in the throes of
Yeah.
that weight, it can make a huge impact just to make sure you're taking care of those basic things. And if you don't live alone and you're living with somebody who's struggling with this, make sure they have a full cup of water next to them.
Yeah.
Encourage them to walk with you to the mailbox, just to come outside, get that fresh air.
Mm-hmm.
Nature is so healing. So just
Mm-hmm.
being outside, even if you're in your pajamas and you're on the back porch, that's
Mm-hmm.
okay. Just being outside in the fresh air is going to help you to move forward a little bit, because if you're able to do those things, chances are you're going to navigate this. It does not mean your grief is going to go away. It's
Mm-hmm.
not. There is no cure for grief or for stress, but
Mm-hmm.
you can manage it, and it
Yeah.
becomes manageable and tolerable so that you can then live with it.
That's good. That's so good. Man, that's so good. So much of what you have said tonight, I believe, can help so many people, because I think we look for the big things to do, and where you said it's the small things. It's the small things that we can do that will make a lasting impact in our lives. And I could remember when I was going through, with my son. I had people, I'm a very sociable person. So, I mean, you say, let's go eat. I'm like, when and where? And I'm there. But for whatever reason during that time, it's like I wanted to go, but when it was time to go, I couldn't do it. And my daughter, literally, I canceled on one friend 3 times. And then another good friend, she wanted me to meet to get out of the house. And I was like, no, I don't think I'm going to go. And my daughter, she was just like very blunt, like, why? Tell me why. Why don't you want to go? And I said, I don't have a reason other than I just don't want to go. She said, I think you need to go. Like, you need to get up. You need to get out of the house, even if you're gone for an hour. And I did it. And it made so much of a difference for me to get out and to go to a restaurant and to sit and talk to someone that I'm used to talking to. And so that was, like, for me, a very divine turnaround moment for me. It was a very
Mhm.
pivotal moment for me. So for those who are watching tonight, I'm telling you, first of all, like, share, and tag this. Tell someone to come and listen in tonight that is struggling with grief, that is struggling, because this is information that's going to be so vital and instrumental in their healing process. And so, I'm just, this is really, again, that seems so simple,
Yeah,
but it's so powerful, and it gets the person who is struggling with grief to the next place. Like, I believe there are phases of being able to navigate through this.
absolutely. And so when you're faced with, I want to run a marathon, you don't just get up and run a
Grief is
marathon,
not a marathon.
right? And so it's like you've got to take those baby steps. And what I know from my own personal experience, from working with other people, is that you have to be realistic in your expectations. And so dinner with a friend is a phenomenal way to help you to cope and to grieve and to move
Mhm.
forward. But before you get to dinner with a friend, you got to get dressed. And
That's
before
right.
and you just got to get out
It
of the
was
bed.
literally steps like you're saying right now. When I go back and think about this, it was going from lying down in the bed to sitting up in the bed. I went from sitting up in the bed for some time to, okay, I'll go and get on the recliner and I'll sit there for a little bit and I may go back and get in the bed. And granted, I probably hadn't even washed my face or brushed my teeth. That was a whole nother step of
It's
having to
real.
go through. I mean, and people may say, oh, that's gross. How can you wake up? You have no idea how hard it is to do the basic necessity things of life. And so it's steps. I mean, you're absolutely right.
And part of self-care, you said earlier, you told your daughter she had to have some grace for you.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have some grace for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have responsibilities, you have people that rely on you. When grief hits you, you need to take care of you first. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's like that oxygen mask coming down in the plane. You have to put yours on first. And so
Mm-hmm.
you have to give yourself some grace.
Mm-hmm.
And part of self-care is giving yourself some grace. It's also getting to the point where you're washing your face and brushing your teeth. That's all self-care too.
Yes,
you
yes.
know, but it's giving yourself the grace of, I don't need to take care of anybody right now. If
Mm-hmm.
you're responsible for taking care of people, if you
Of
have
your
minor children, make arrangements, call
yes.
somebody, let them get taken care of. You take care of you until you can move forward.
Absolutely, absolutely. I want to encourage those of you who are watching. If you have specific questions, please put them in the chat. I'm monitoring the chat in between having the conversation. So please, this is a moment, where you may not be willing to go in an office to meet with someone. You may not be ready for the group setting, but this is an opportunity for you to take advantage of a moment to ask a professional those questions that you may have, something that you want to know. And so also remember, please share this so that we can get this information out to those who are struggling with grief. And remember, for those who may be just joining us, we said grief is not just losing a person, it's the loss of a person, place, or thing, anything that means something dear to you and has been removed from you, taking away from you. I understand how difficult that may be. I know a year after my son passed, I home flooded, and so we were still trying to navigate through what life was like without my son, and then we're taking out of our home. I mean, granted, we had another place to go to, but things that we had worked for, they were replaceable things. But I mean, let's just be real. Even the things that are replaceable, it was a challenge for us. So now it's helping me to understand some of those things as well as we're talking about that
Absolutely.
tonight.
And I'll tell you, when we work with our students, when we do our grief retreat in the spring, and then when we do our upcoming grief retreat in the fall, for younger students, we always have an art component. And
Hmm.
art, talk about stress. Art, if you don't feel like an artist, can stress people out. So what I have found is that if you just have grace for yourself and engage, so even if it's just Play-Doh, right? And you
Hmm.
think Play-Doh, that's not really artistic, but just melding it into
Hmm.
your hands can be so soothing and relaxing. And
Hmm.
if you're into clay or if you're into painting or whatever it is, those outlets can be so soothing, but you don't have to be. You don't have to be Picasso to receive benefit from, these artistic expressions, whether it's journaling. That's something that I'm a bit of a perfectionist. So journaling is just not something that comes naturally to me because I want to
Uh-huh.
correct everything that I've written. And so giving yourself the permission to just write, even if
Hmm.
it's out of anger, even if it's something, you can tear it up, you can throw it away, you can burn it, you can keep it and read it later. Whatever it is that
Hmm.
helps you through the process can
Hmm.
help take it out, because the more we push it down, the more we keep it in. You may not be ready to talk to anybody yet, but you need to still get it out. And those are ways that you can get it out in a healthy way.
I'd like to also say one of the things that I share with people when, we're in grief support or whether I'm somewhere sharing is because my faith is what helped me to get to where I am. It has sustained me. As a matter of fact, this morning I was literally thanking God that He has kept my mind in the midst of what I went through. My son being taken away, and then a year later, going through the flood. But God kept my mind sane enough that I can not only help myself, but to walk with other people to navigate through it. And so I would say God cannot heal what you're not willing to talk about. And whether that's through a journal or wherever it is, whether it is audible or whether it's something written, like God cannot, He can, because I mean, He is God, but it's that giving permission to do to take the steps, to go through the process of what you need.
He has to know you're ready. And so,
Mm-hmm.
when we talk about big emotions with our kids, we say you have to name it to tame it. And the
Mm-hmm.
same goes when we're looking above for grace
Mm-hmm.
and for healing. We
Mm-hmm.
have to state what it is we need that healing, what we're ready for.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yes, I 100% love that, and think that there's no better way than you can express it, if not out loud to another person, then at least in written form,
Mm-hmm.
to put it out there, because suppressing it, keeping it inside, is where that stress grows and
Mm-hmm.
where that becomes toxic.
Yeah.
And and that is going to cause additional problems. It's not just going to make you feel bad, but it's going to physically affect your health.
Start to manifest in other areas of your life.
Absolutely.
So, what are some warning signs that someone grieving is experiencing toxic stress rather than the normal grief related stress?
Great question. So, grief can be overwhelming. And so, it doesn't vary on what the loss is. We never
Mhm.
grade the loss as far as, severity goes, because that's a spectrum for the individual, right? And
Mhm.
your
Mhm.
loss. So, one person's divorce could be another person's parent or child loss, so I mean,
Mhm.
we don't grade that, but what we do look at is the healing process, and we look at the ability to get back to functional. We
Mhm.
look at the duration of time it takes,
Mhm.
and how the severity of your state of mind.
Mhm.
So if you're telling me, you know, I'm getting up, I'm going to work, I just don't feel like going to big parties anymore. That's okay. That's not
Mhm.
severe. But if you're telling me
Mhm.
I can't get out of bed because I'm
Mhm.
still stuck, and it's
Mhm.
been X number of months, then we're getting to the place where we need a professional intervention,
Mhm.
because then it's becoming toxic.
Yeah.
And so 6 months really is, and again, you may not be ready to throw yourself out to a party or a big crowd.
Mhm.
Even you may still just be doing the bare minimum,
Mhm.
but as long as you're doing, that's a
Yeah.
positive sign. And
Mhm. Mhm.
so when it comes to the functionality of daily life, that's really what we're looking at. And then that's including, is it affecting your diet? Is it affecting your sleep? Is it still affecting? Because those are physical symptoms. So if you're saying, it's been 6 months and I'm still not sleeping through the night,
Mhm.
or I'm still having night terrors, or I still, I can't eat anything, I have no appetite,
Mhm.
we need to have some kind of, professional to meet,
Mhm.
even if it's your primary care doctor,
Mhm.
somebody to just meet
Mhm.
with you to help guide you, because that's a long time for your body physically to endure that kind of stress or grief.
So let me ask you. I've heard this term called functional grieving. And so there's someone that I know that I feel like she was very much in the functional grieving situation, because I felt like, just because I knew her personally, I I didn't feel like she had gone through the process of grief, but she was doing what was necessary. But once that was over, it was almost like, okay, I need to get out of bed because I got to go to work. because I have bills to pay or whatever. But when I get back home, I'm going back to this mode. Is
Yeah,
that such a thing? Like,
absolutely. And it's like going through the motions of
mhm,
I am still hurting deeply inside, but
mhm,
I can't get my lights turned off. And so I have to get
mhm,
up and go to work and do the bare minimum. So, yes, that absolutely is functional.
mhm,
I would even say at that state, right? So we look at like the varying degrees. Okay, she's getting out of bed, but then she's getting right back into bed.
mhm,
And what are her interactions during the day while she's out of bed? Is she just shutting out everyone in isolation?
mhm,
Because we look at that severe piece at 6 months, but if you're talking like a year out and we're still climbing in the bed when we get home from work,
mhm,
I think that we're looking at, okay, hey, this isn't a quality of life, you
mhm,
know? And so
mhm,
it's
mhm,
functional,
mhm.
but is it quality? And what varying degree? Because some people might say, well, that's what I always do. And I'm not even grieving. And that's just my, I'm just in the bed. But I think that from a clinical perspective, we say, that's depressive in
Mhm,
nature. And so we need to address that because we are humans and we need human connection. So
mhm,
I
mhm,
think looking at that as a time frame. And you also have to look at, just like when there's a physical illness, you have to look at previous level of functioning.
mhm,
So you were a very social person. So getting back out and being very social, but was this individual kind of a recluse or kind of
mhm,
isolated, right? And so it's like
mhm,
looking at the whole
mhm.
person to determine what that is.
So it seems like tonight we've talked about what how to recognize when something is shifting from what was tolerable, but maybe and then maybe something becomes toxic, and when you actually need the professional support. And so, which are very key things, because oftentimes it's easy to kind of, and people often say, slip into depression, and it's, you will sometimes stay longer than what you planned,
Yeah.
like than what you anticipated, like you never saw it coming. And so, there are times for me, I think about triggers. I mean, and just this, maybe it was Saturday night, I had a moment, and to where I was looking at pictures, looking at my son, some things that he was involved in, and it went from happy to, oh my God, I can't believe that you're not here. I miss you. But that was a moment. And I gave myself that moment to just have that moment of missing him, but it didn't put me back in the bed the next day. I was able to wake up the next morning and carry on as though that didn't necessarily happen. And so, is that a safe place for people?
Oh, 100%. I always hate the term normal, but that is an absolute normal state
Mm-hmm.
of grief.
Mm-hmm.
It's those waves that are going to
Mm-hmm.
come. But the thing is that when they knock us down, which it's going to, like it
Mm-hmm.
knocked you down that night, right? You didn't
Mm-hmm.
see it coming, but then it kind of washed over you. But then you got back up.
Yeah.
And it's when we get knocked down and we're not getting back up
Mm-hmm.
that the people around us, because sometimes we don't even realize it in ourselves.
Yeah.
So it takes an outside person to say, I'm worried about you.
And I've had to do that before to someone that I know. It's like, hey, I've kind of noticed, this is what I see. Tell me, do you feel like this is accurate or not? Because I don't want to put something on you that's not. And I feel like when we're close enough to people, we can receive things from those people, the persons who are closest to us, and we trust them. I mean, I had people that I was accountable to, and I would say, hey, listen, if I am in the bed for 3 days, longer than 3 days, I need you to say something. I need you to confront me, because and remind me that I told you this. And I trust that that will give me the motivation to get up. So I had people that I was accountable to, and I trusted them.
Yes, that's so important because a lot of times when we care about people and we see them struggling, we don't want to push them too fast or too
Mhm,
hard. And we
mhm,
worry about when how long is too long?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so, you know, maybe there people are hearing me say 6 months and they're like, it's been 6 weeks and this is bad.
Yeah.
Again, prior level of functioning, loss, and how they are functioning now. Are they trying? Is there any glimpse that, not that they're trying, because it's not like you're making the
Mm-hmm.
choice,
Right.
but are you seeing like those baby steps from the
Mm-hmm.
bed to the recliner, or are
Mm-hmm.
you just seeing a give up altogether? Because if it's just no movement in the other direction, we need to intervene and we need
Yeah.
to, push forward to get some help, um, because it's going to become toxic.
So what practices would help build resilience so that the grief-related stress doesn't become toxic?
That
What
is
can they
wonderful.
do?
So having a connection, and so some kind of social interaction, whether it's making sure you're talking to somebody on the phone every day, making sure you're physically seeing somebody, that human connection is going to be the number one thing that helps.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to relying on your faith, but as
Mm-hmm.
far as like what can we tangibly do here, making that human connection, getting outside, getting fresh air, those basics. And, I'd say, healthy meals, and,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times you're inundated with meals, especially at the, beginning of a loss. And then you're left with whatever's left,
Mm-hmm.
crackers or whatever, because you're not
Mm-hmm.
going to the store.
Mm-hmm.
But trying to make sure you're having some sustenance. Um, but honestly, gratitude, and it's hard when you
Wow.
are in the depths of it, finding something to be grateful for.
Mm-hmm.
But I have been present with individuals in seconds after a traumatic loss
Mm-hmm.
and asking, tell me something that was so good about them. Tell me your favorite thing about them. And
Mm-hmm.
the lightness that comes over them as they
Mm-hmm.
say, you know what? She was like this, or
Mm-hmm.
he loved that. And
Mm-hmm.
it is so beneficial for us. And again, I keep saying physically, mentally,
Mm-hmm.
spiritually, to just find that piece of gratitude. And so, even if you're under the covers in the bed, face not washed, if
Mm-hmm.
you can find a way to think about something that you can be grateful for, it's going to have a positive impact on you. So, varying levels of where
Mm-hmm.
you might be in the stages. Um, Gratitude is always going to be beneficial.
Yeah.
And relaxing, you don't realize it because you're like, I'm in the bed all day. What do you mean relax?
Mm-hmm.
Focusing on your breath, because a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times you're in the bed, but your body is like this.
Yeah.
And so, and that is not healthy for our
Mm-hmm.
bodies to stay in that
Mm-hmm.
state. So even if there's an alarm set, and every hour on the hour while you're laying in that bed, you intentionally listen to your breath, you
Mm-hmm.
intentionally go from your head, consciously thinking about every body part all the way down to your toes, to relax them.
Yeah.
That's beneficial.
Yeah. It's this information is so vital to it's necessary for the person who is going through grief, because I understand that in that moment these aren't things that you necessarily want to hear right away, but I am telling you, the moment that you can be open, the sooner you are open to and willing to go through the process, to go through the steps, to navigate what life is going to look like without whatever it is that you've lost, the stronger, the better you become. Of
Mm.
course, again, and Amy, you said this earlier, you will never get over it. But for me, my posture and my stance, my belief of grieving helped me to get to where I am right now. And granted, and I will tell, and I have said, and I really do believe this, that I believe God graced me for this a lot quicker than probably most people who are grieving, because there was a work that he needed me to do. And in order for me to do the work, I had to go through the steps. I had to go through it because I'm a believer that you can't tell me nothing if you haven't experienced it. It's hard for you. You know, education is one thing, but when you can experience it and have education, oh my gosh, it's a whole different level
It
of.
changes the whole lens of how you then educate
Mhm,
others, right? And help others for sure.
mhm. So, I tell people, don't base how quickly I went through the process based off of yours, because that was different. I mean, like, people have probably heard my story. The morning we were burying my son, God told me I was going to help people grieve. And I was like, no, sir, I'm not. I'm not doing it. But
That's
then
what
2 months later, I had 5 mothers in my living room and we were talking about that. Like, that's that's not normal. I mean, I was going to say unnormal. I mean, I don't know what to say, but it's just not the most. I mean, you don't really see that. And so I know that God had a calling on my life. A part of my calling, my purpose was to help people to navigate through grief. And in order for me to help them, I had to walk it out. I had to walk out what it's like to feel pain. I had to walk out what it felt like, to feel like my heart has been ripped out, because now I can tell a mother, listen, I know exactly how you feel. I know the feeling that you have. I can assure you probably feel like somebody, your heart has been ripped out. And they're like, oh my gosh, how did you know? Because I went through it and I can tell you what it's like. So I know, this information that you're sharing tonight is so vital. It's so necessary. And so before we get ready to close, one of the questions that I'd like to ask you, because I often think about this, I was very blessed and fortunate when my son passed away, that this was not as big of an issue for me as it may be for other people. So, what do you think? How can workplaces or organizations better support employees who are grieving so that their stress doesn't escalate into toxicity?
Absolutely. I think that that's something we need to get better at as a society.
Mm-hmm.
Because currently, what most businesses and places of work say are, okay, take your days and then come back and be where you were before,
Mm-hmm.
back to
Mm-hmm.
business as usual.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that, you know, I'm a social worker. And so, but I have a lot of family members that are business people. And so we have conversations like this all the time, because I said, I know you don't operate in a therapeutic setting. However, you work with people. And if
Mm-hmm.
you're going to work with people, you're going to experience loss. And
Mm-hmm.
so, and they are too. The people that work for you, the people that you work for, they're going to experience loss. And so you have to have some level of understanding to be able to have those parameters set of,
Yeah.
hey, I need a break. Hey, I need just 5 minutes. And
Mm-hmm.
again, yes, the job has to get done. You have to be able to do, but I think that even just asking, how are you doing?
The
Right?
sensitivity, being
Goes a
sensitive.
long way.
Mm-hmm.
So I know you don't have the time to hear my hour-long therapy session, but how are you doing?
Yeah.
What do you need right now? So
Mm-hmm.
if you're scared to ask how, because I have family members that are like, oh, I don't really want to know. And they're like, that's what you want to know. I don't want to know that. That's fair. But what do you need? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you need a hug?
Mm-hmm.
Do you need no phone calls for a minute? Do you need to not
Mm-hmm.
answer email until 9 instead of at 8? Right? So it's like, what do
Mm-hmm.
you need?
Yeah.
I think that that's a question that isn't scary, because
Yeah.
we can either meet that need or we can't, but we can at
That's
least
right.
negotiate it.
That's right.
So I think that for people who run companies, I think that that's a safe place to start.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm glad you're back. What do you need?
Yeah.
And if they say I need 5 months off, and you say I can't do that, but I understand,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you know, let's talk about what your options are. But you can navigate forward.
And I think what you're saying, number one, what I believe will make the most of an impact is asking them what is. what can I do for you? And maybe they can't think. And so maybe that's a moment for them to say, hey, as you said, start asking them, do you need to work with half days? Would that help you working half days? Like, I'm willing to do that with you. And as I mentioned, I was very blessed that I think I took off maybe a month or so. And then they allowed me to work half days, just Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then half days for the entire week. And gradually, and I understand that that's not everybody's situation, but I think that if employers would have a little bit more of sensitivity, I
Mhm.
believe that it will not only help the person, the individual who's grieving, but it will also, I believe it will impact their productivity of what they can do. Because if you tell me that, just don't worry about emails for an hour or the phone, just try to get your papers together. I believe it's going to help them to think, it will help them to appreciate, their
Absolutely.
employer more.
Absolutely. And that's when you look at job satisfaction, most people stay in their jobs because of the people, not even because of
Hmm.
the work that they're doing, but it's because of the people. And
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
to just check in on your people, because you may not even know the loss that they're experiencing.
Right.
So I would just challenge, hey, whether you know or not, check in on your folks and just ask
That's
them,
right. That's
hey,
right.
how you doing? What can I do for you? What do you need?
Hmm.
Um, and make that part of the climate and the culture of the office place is that
Yes.
we want to meet your needs. And so how do we do that?
So I want to thank you. I'm going to give you the final word before we go off, but this has been a very enlightening, very uh, I'm not sure what the word I'm looking for, but it was a very great conversation for me because it opened my eyes to just a little bit more to understand what tolerable versus toxic stress is. And in the work that I do when I am meeting with some people, it will just help to be able to be a little bit more in tune to maybe what is how to share with them, how to challenge them. And so thank you for taking time out of your Monday. I know school just started, and I'm sure moving, shuffling all of those pieces around to rush home and to do this. I thank you for every time that you've said yes, as you mentioned earlier in this broadcast that we've done. Several things together, and I'm very appreciative of you. I believe in the work that you do. I believe I see the passion in the work that you do. So it's not just a job; it is a calling. I believe to be able to reach those people that you're able to make a difference in the children's lives and even in those adults that you come in contact with. So if you would take the next couple minute or so and to just share whatever it is that you feel is most important, if you wanted to leave someone with something, this would be what you would want to share with them.
I thank you so much for having me and giving me space to share this with others who hopefully can benefit from it. And for anyone listening, whatever state you're in or a person that you care deeply about is in, um, don't worry about the comparison. Don't compare to Pam superhuman and was
Mhm.
able to, get this off the ground running in months following her tragic loss. You walk your path,
Mhm.
but don't walk it alone. That's
Yeah,
that's the most important thing
that's
is
good.
that you don't have to go through it alone, and you are not the first to ever experience this. Others have experienced, we all experience loss. When I say it's universal, there's not a living person on this earth that's not going to encounter loss.
Mhm.
So it is truly the universal experience of human beings. And so there's no reason for anybody to navigate that alone.
Mhm. Mhm.
So reach out. And if you know someone and you're trying to give them space, go ahead and reach out.
Mhm.
Just let them know that they're on your mind and ask what they need.
Yes. Well, thank you for sharing that. And thank you to those of you who have been tuned in for this live anchored by Grace, where tonight we talked about tolerable stress versus toxic stress. I want to let you know next month we will be talking about how leading community traumas that impact Southern families and the overall wellness. So that's going to be a discussion next month. The following month, we're going to talk about what identity crisis looks like while you're grieving. Like, what does that look like for an individual? And then in November, we will be talking about grieving the justice systems and how people are being failed by the justice systems and how we grieve those processes. So we have a couple in December. We're going to just talk about how to get through Christmas. Just how to get through those times. So please stay tuned in for the things that we have that are going to be coming up in the next couple months. And so again, thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you next month.